What's the comedy scene in Baltimore like?
The first show I had was I randomly got, because I was like screaming in a bathroom.
As you do, I've been there.
Yeah.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Library Hours. I'm Reed Brice. For this episode, I'm joined by one of the sweetest and funniest people I know, someone I met doing a premium sketch review at the Second City Hollywood. They're one of the hosts of the podcast Bong Hits, as well as your Virgo friend Camirin for the Eternal Family streaming service. It's Camirin Farmer. Let's get right into the chat, shall we? You said you're cat sitting?
Yeah, we're just cat sitting for a friend for a couple of months, and he's very communicative about what he wants and likes and needs. So
I think that's one of the first big hurdles of if you haven't had a cat before, especially of realizing that they make their needs known.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever means possible. It's the sort of directness of communication that I am striving for as a human being.
Yeah. It would be nice to be that way, for sure.
I mean, maybe I won't use my claws or, my one of my other cats today decided I had not woken up at an appropriate hour for him, so he just launched himself onto my body from some high up point. No, just sociopath stuff. Just very much like, no, your day begins now. Like the jigsaw killer.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We're such like potheads that like I know he meows for so long, but it's just like, sorry, but I'm still deep in REM.
Oh, I'm sure talking about pot stuff is probably not a big deal since you are the host of Bong Hits. And that's probably on the table. I want to know all about, like, how's it been doing your podcast? How long have y'all been running that one again?
It'll be a year on 420, which is so funny.
Oh, that's when you started. Of course you did, you stupid idiots.
We're so fucking
no,
stupid.
I am too. I started mine on my birthday, so I would not forget.
Yeah, well, yeah, we started ours on our anniversary, so we would not forget.
Your anniversary is 420.
Yeah.
This is so many layers
so
of
bad.
amazing. I am unwrapping right now. I love you and Colin so much, and I haven't even gotten to hang out with Colin much yet, but I adore him.
I know. He's the best. I love him so much. He's so cool. He's just chilling right now in the other room. I think just probably smoking weed.
Yeah, I will. For our
likely.
listeners, it was my first introduction to you, but also my first introduction to what he was like, just by proxy, was that really amazing. You and I did this sketch show at the Second City. It was like, I'm very proud that it was the first Second City show to probably ever show hardcore gay pornography. But I also, you still managed to one-up me, because you did a sketch, and I don't know if you still want to do this bit, so we don't have to include it or not, but I do think America should know that you probably did Second City's first sketch about, what is it called, sounding, where the matchstick bit.
Oh my God. I completely forgot about that.
I didn't, because I would make I would make a point to make sure that I could be in the wings every night. So not just so I could enjoy the bit myself, but so I could watch the audience experiencing, like, having it described for the first time. And
God.
if you want to share, I should let you describe it, because you'll probably do a better job of it. But I was just like, this is
what sounding is.
Even just what that bit in general was, because it was just because you basically, it was like you had a therapist, and even it was such a meta bit, because you knew no one wanted to be hearing this.
That's true. That is very true. I don't fucking remember the bit, but I do remember talking about sounding briefly.
Like,
Jesus.
It was one of those things where very, and I think this is why I love you as a comedian, and why I want to make sure that I'm getting all of my friends to check out your shit, is because you have that very Chris Farley meta theater to your comedic persona, where whatever you're about to set that person up with is going to make them just go, oh, okay, what? in a beautiful way, because you were like, just describing it very off the cuff of like, yeah, sometimes my boyfriend will just stick a matchstick up his pee hole.
Oh, yes. That is not something we've ever done, but we were.
Well,
I just want to clarify. I don't want to put
like right now in this moment. Remember that really old meme where it's like some wrestling like panel, and that dude in the audience who's a super fan is like, "It's still real to me, damn it!"
I just don't want to put Colin on the spot. I don't want him to have to.
Well, I was about to ask him if he could come and do a demo, but this is also not a video podcast, so I guess it wouldn't read anyway. So okay, we're gonna we'll shelve the sounding bit. I'll let you workshop that amongst yourself. If you want to do it on your own time, that's fine.
Okay, that sounds good. It would be funny to be like so upset about being tokenized for sounding.
Well, you're my only friend. You're my only. I don't know anyone in the sounding community.
I'm not.
Somebody of
I'm
sounding
not.
experience.
I don't want to appropriate the sounding experience or culture. I am actually not a part of it.
Somebody
but
on
good on you
FetLife
if you
listens
are.
to this and immediately is on the boards like, we need to do something about this. They're coming for
I'm
our
so
way of
sorry.
life. No, we should probably move off of sounding, because even though I do have this as explicit, I do want people to listen to this.
Valid. Very valid.
If you have not turned it off, thank you. Are you finding that podcasting is a really good groove for you? What are you most excited to be working on lately?
I mean, the podcast has been nice. It's mostly been something for us to like just do creatively pretty regularly, so we feel like not so bogged down by like quarantine and just how the world is so insane and missing comedy and stuff. And it's been a nice stress relief, and it's been a way to, surprisingly weirdly, being a way to like catch up with people who have been listening to it that I didn't know were, and then they reach out and I'm like, oh my god. Every time someone tells me they listen to our pod, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, why?
No, I think like between that and your Twitter feed, I'm always just very humbled by like, oh no, I will never be able to just come up with the most amazing thought in the moment like Camirin.
Well, what you have to do is just smoke a lot of weed all the time.
Oh, dang it. I'm going the other direction. I'm becoming one of those little teetotalers so I can get my mental health in check.
Yeah, of course.
I think weed might be something that's still in the rotation for occasions and for making sure I eat enough. But I gave up the alcohols. And I gave caffeine, which is the funnier one. I'm like, I'm involuntarily Mormon. That's the one my doctors are like, if we can have you stop stimulants, you'll stop being so much like this.
Damn, the caffeine one always seems really tough. That's the one, and I've spoken to my therapist about that, where I'm just like, I will always drink coffee. That's something that I'm going to do. I'm fully aware it's an addiction, and I'm never going to stop. And he's like, okay.
It is hard. No, because like it's one of those things where it's so just, not to like overuse a word that's kind of like at this point, but it is normal. It's just like in the most traditional sense. Like coffee is just something that like you do in the morning, and it's how most people function. And I get more of that sort of like, oh man, that sucks, than I do for the alcohol, especially out here in LA where everyone's very health conscious and most of them can't they're like, I already can only do clear liquids anyway. I understand.
Yeah.
It's like that, but with caffeine, they go, oh shit, girl, I don't know. Good luck.
It's tough. There's like so many more, I don't want to like trivialize anybody's experience, but there are immediate reactions to not having caffeine like every single day, and they're really intense. And it's fucking,
I am finding it out.
Yeah.
I've been having mixed results with my attempts at sobriety. Every once in a while, I'll just like find the cup of green tea in my hand and go, oh god damn it. It just brewed and materialized here. Okay. But have you been handling being somebody, because you're very open with your mental health stuff, and only as much as you want to get into it, obviously, because like I said, let's only touch on things where we want to right now. What's your process been like with your doctor on managing, especially like tail end of this COVID stuff?
I mean, it's been interesting. I had already been doing virtual therapy just because my therapist was all the way in like West Hollywood, Beverly Hills.
Same,
and there was like,
you want the good cure, but you cannot commute that far. I understand.
Exactly. It was such a long drive. Parking was like $12 every time I went, and I was like spending a copay, and I was like, I can't spend this much money every time I go.
This is why therapy is for rich people for so long. That was I tried to figure out like where in my white trash culture like the resistance to medical care came from, and when I finally figured out it was just the money part. Yeah. And then on my family's more immediate side, the religious part, where you should only tell your secrets to God, and then the people who are talking to God and you give them the money. That was what their relationship to therapy was. But it's so damn expensive. And when you and I are working the sort of lives where we don't even know what our next gig's going to be, how can you be thinking about copays and like long-term care? It's prohibitive.
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you think that you've gotten into a good rhythm and steady like accessibility?
Yeah, I'm great. The one thing I'm grateful about the job that I still have is that it provides insurance, which is a big part of why I'm still there. And so it's nice because like the copay is fairly cheap, even if like consistent. And yeah, just having had started virtual therapy like a year before COVID started, or at least hit the US, or at least we are aware that it was hitting the US. It's I was very grateful to have already been like in that sort of rhythm. So that didn't feel too weird to have to like have everything virtual because I was already doing that. I also was able to encourage a couple of people who are like, oh, it seems weird. And I'm like, straight up, I've been doing it for a year. It's great. It's easier to be vulnerable in my own space and like going and like the
That's
putting on
true.
of like, of like traveling. And
if you can be in your comfy clothes and with your blanket that you've had since you were 6, because then even then you can probably recognize when you're seeing somebody who's not a good fit for you. Because I also treat therapists like, you know, like dating and relationships. And I think a lot of people mistake it and go like, oh no, you're my new teacher. You're my authority figure. Yeah. or what's your relationship with your therapist like in that dynamic?
I love my therapist so much. He's wonderful. He's like a gay guy, so it's like nice because he like gets it. So there's just like a lot of things that like I don't have to like do a lot of explaining about things. God, I can just like launch in and talk about it, which is super, super nice. Not have to do that extra work.
No, even a cisgender gay therapist is the preference, and they're so rare even here in Los Angeles. Like just So did you?
Yeah, and he lived in San Francisco for a while, so he like gets
he's gay.
He's very chill. Yeah. I really like him a lot.
There's just something about the West Coast flavor, and especially the San Francisco gay, that they really are able. I don't know, and this is overgeneralization. I'm sure they're buttholes. That reminds me, have you seen, and this could actually segue into the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, all of the cool Baltimore shit. Have you seen the documentary about the Coquettes, the drag scene, the West Coast drag scene that was happening at the same time as like the Andy Warhol New York scene in the 70s?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to get you my Amazon password after this so you can watch it, because I feel like you would dig it in a big way, because the Coquettes, they were a troupe that came out of that. What's that park that everybody's in San Francisco? All the hippies and they meet up and stuff.
Is it Hyde Park? I don't really know too much about San Francisco.
Yeah, okay. I'm very sorry to our listeners that I don't remember the hold on. Let me just look it up so I'm professional. Park in San. I say professional as I Google park in San Francisco. Hippies?
It'll come up, I'm sure.
Golden Gate, Hippie Hill. All right, now it's just trolling me. God damn it. Haight Ashbury. Okay, there we go.
Ashbury.
I'm going to leave that in just so people can enjoy that little struggle of me Googling what is a park in San Francisco. So the Haight Ashbury scene, you know, like when all the hippie communes, like they had nowhere to go because they were obviously not going to be going and fighting any of those little wars that were happening.
Yeah.
It kind of was like the same way the Japanese street fashion scene happened organically. These hippies would be so high, they'd be like, let me put on every single piece of clothing in my outfit. And they would like organically come out with these drag sort of looks. And there were these queens that they figured out that they would, every time they would go to this one midnight movie, they would end up causing a big scene just because of the way they look, because they were so fabulous. And they struck a deal because they wanted to get into the movies for free. They struck a deal to become the opening act for the movie house. And
that rules.
And the movie house was like, all right. And then they started like doing so well that like people would be coming just to see them. And the Coquettes started trying to get their shit together. They were like really, really, really drug induced acts. And it was actually one of the most inclusive, like, you're here, baby, let's do it. You had straight drag queens, like guys who were like, yeah, this is what I love doing. You had like cisgender women who were drag queens. There was even a moment in the documentary where a gay guy and a lesbian like just had sex by accident, and then they ended up a couple and they had a baby, and they ended up having a drag queen baby. And there's like
that rules.
Yeah. From that, the Coquettes were actually the people who got John Waters and Divine on the national map, because they were the ones who were like, we see what you're doing there in the Baltimore scene. Let us play your shit here in San Francisco. And then it went over like gangbusters, and so they're like, let's fly you out. So they flew Divine out, and all of these drag queens actually went in drag while Divine was also in drag, because Divine, like, apparently it was said by her in the film that like like she was her male persona when she left, before she left the house that day, but after that, when she got on the plane, she was kind of like, if you saw her from that point on, she was divine, because of what happened was when she got to San Francisco, she was just immediately like a huge sensation, and that got them all national attention. And honestly, I don't think that the Cockettes would have been as successful without John Waters and Divine as well, because there's something about Baltimore art, and so that's why I want to talk to you, because you spent time. Are you from there, or did you spend time there?
No, I'm from here actually,
from Pasadena,
but I
right?
live.
Or I can bleep that, but you're.
Oh, it's
okay,
fine. I don't care.
Cool.
Yeah. I have said it many times.
Oh, that's right. That's the only reason I know, is because you've talked about it publicly. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm very much like, are you okay? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm good.
Tell me more about the time that you spent in Baltimore, because I know that I know it's important to you a lot in your influences. You've talked to me about it before.
Yeah. Well, I went to college there and moved into the city my senior year of college, and then stayed another extra 3 years. So it's funny too, because I've lived in LA, the city of LA, longer than I lived in the city of Baltimore so far, which is crazy. Yeah. But I was in Maryland for 7 years, and it was fucking great. I loved it there. It's like my favorite place in the world. It is a very extremely like creative city. It feels like people are making art in all sort of different ways, like literally all around you.
Like how would you describe it as kind of contrasting from like the LA scene?
Well, it's walkable is the first thing.
Oh,
that's like very different.
That's the big stark difference.
I didn't have a car the entire time I was there, which I miss so fucking much, because I just walked everywhere I went, or I took public transport, and there's so much free public transportation, which is incredible.
Oh, so very walkable. Is that because it's like smaller? Is it? Am I thinking in terms of like a Pittsburgh sort of size, or what are we thinking?
I don't know what Pittsburgh is like, but
or like maybe Manhattan sized, or in terms of like the actual island.
No, it's like less dense. I would say it's probably similar to, like, it's hard to describe because it really is like the only place I've been to like that.
Smaller than San Francisco?
I guess it would probably be kind of more similar to San Francisco. Okay. I know a lot of people would like go to Chicago after and maybe leave Chicago and come to Baltimore, and there are like a lot of similarities there, I've heard.
Oh yeah. What were you studying in college? Where'd you go?
I went to Goucher College. It was a small liberal arts school. It was like 1,500 undergrads. So it was really, really tiny.
For the whole, and it was about whole school?
For the undergrad. Yeah. I think the grad program was maybe 200 people, but they didn't like stay on campus or anything. So it was like super tiny, and I was really involved in school because I loved Maryland and I loved my school. So it was just like everybody knew each other.
What were you studying? What were you really excited that you did while you were there?
I got my degree in American Studies, which was just so fucking insane.
Wait, okay, hold on. I have a public education from Riverside County. So what is American Studies?
Yeah, it's like so not a thing. It's just like, it's like the easiest degree in the world if you're an American.
Yeah, you do the pledge every day. No, don't be modest or
no, I'm not. It's just like it's like sociology and anthropology for America, and it was essentially like a make your own major. Because at my school there was only one official American Studies class, and it was Intro to American Studies.
And you got there and you're like, this is my whole life, baby.
Yeah, I was like, this rules. Like, I like this. I like getting deep into this. But like, what was cool about it was like, I could, because it was like a make your own major sort of, it was just like, if this class has to do with America, then it fulfills like parts of like whatever you need to do. And, or it's like parts of the requirement. And so a lot of my stuff was really like based on English. So it was essentially like sort of an English major, but then there are people who are American Studies major who did like a lot of history. There are people who only did theater. Like it was really, it was a major where you could like fuck around and find out.
No, because I'm a little nerd that like when I'm in school and my spectruminess is not getting in my way, because like the STEM stuff not so easy for me to deal with, but especially when I started getting into the college level classes of history, and especially like American history, it was really amazing to find out like all the shit that had been explained or educated to us like incorrectly or just straight up like
that was
the revisionism of it. Like,
I mean, it is very illuminating to just like take a deep look into like what America is and how we got there, and to see that like 98% of it is all falsehoods or it's like redistributed information to fit like a different narrative. Because like what America is like, it's a narrative and it's an idea and like the American dream. And so like whatever our history was or whatever like is happening now is always going to be filtered through certain ideals. And so just like learning how those ideals came to be, or learning how those like ideals transformed like real information and real history was mind-blowing. And it's like I already had a bit of an understanding of that, being just like a black person in America.
I can imagine that you have probably a degree of we'll say experience to be able to take in those things and process them differently than I will. Because full disclosure, I'm a white person.
That sounds
if
about
you could not
right.
tell by every timbre and in tone and demeanor, I am a Caucasian. I will admit. I will not front about that. Okay, was there
Thank you. I appreciate
it. The listener.
I know. I was joking.
Could you imagine if I was trying to come out as white to you, Cameron? I'm sure we're a few.
You're like, I never knew.
I'm sure we're a few steps from one of our friends trying to pull that shit soon. But
oh yeah, I'm like, who will it be in the comedy scene that's like, I'm actually a different race? I'm just waiting for that to happen.
Somebody who was on YouTube early, probably.
Oh, for sure,
do you remember that? Oh God, not to get into much, because again, it's not my stuff to even be mad or laugh about, but like that little Loca character, or there's something like that where it's just straight up. It was a white woman. A white woman who just straight up like pretended to be a chola.
Oh my God.
Sometimes I think about some of those old guard YouTubers, like, you're not getting around that, honey. Good luck.
Yeah, well,
good luck.
2020 was the year for a lot of stuff to come out on YouTube, which I'm like been strangely fascinated by, because I didn't give a fuck about YouTube since I was like in high school. Mm-hmm. And then like this past couple of years, 2019 including, getting very invested in YouTube drama. The Tati Westbrook thing coming out, and I was like, I should probably invest in this.
No,
because this sounds like my cup of tea.
I also was around the high school age of when YouTube started, which was like 2006, I believe, or 2006, I believe. And yeah. I fell off, except for the parts where I, like, around 10 years ago, I started working in YouTube stuff. So I know what's going on in the YouTube world, but only through like the weird position of it being children's media. So I have the sort of frame of reference that I had that Bad Luck Brian guy try to pick me up in a bar once at VidCon. The meme guy, yes. So he doesn't get the homophobes and try to deny it. I was in girl mode. I was still presenting as a woman at that time. I had my long, beautiful femme hair, and I was putting on a dress, and I was doing the tap dance, trying to make it work. And he came up and he was like, "Hey, do you know who I am?" And I was like, "Oh no, what? What's going on? Do
you know who I am? Please know who I am."
If you don't know who Bad Luck Brian is, he is a very early proto meme where it was just some poor fellow that his high school photo, he happened to be looking a little bit dorky. And it was one of those text memes where it was just like, gets in a car, dies immediately. No, that's a terrible example. I can't do a Bad Luck Brian.
No, I mean, like, that's like, they weren't good memes. So I think that was probably one of the better ones, was what you just said. I think that was the best example you could get.
But I don't always know like the intricacies the way that somebody younger will be able just to be like, oh yes, that's that person who got canceled for that reason and that reason and that reason.
Yeah.
So I'll just go on unsuspectingly be like, oh, this person's got a cute puppy channel, and then finally like, oh, it's a puppy mill, and oh god, and I'm like, oh god, I participated in it. Oh god, what in some way by looking at it.
I mean, I focus on the big names of YouTube getting canceled because they're, monsters. I love Trisha Paytas, and I always have, and I knew there was something going on, because I'm like, these aren't things I would say, and they're not even things I would think, but the way you're presenting yourself seems like a way I would. And then I think like a week or so ago she came out like schizophrenia, paranoia or something. but she's had like bipolar disorder and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, bitch, that's me.
If you've never experienced the force of nature that is Trisha Paytas, she is one of those people
amazing.
that like I was saying, she's been on YouTube since forever. And and the way that these older YouTubers work and operate and they survive is they get ahead of things. They figure out what's happening in the zeitgeist, and then they say, how can I get in on that? You know, they very much remind me of like the snake oil salesman of yesteryear, who instead of going around with a cart and horse and be like, I can sell you these shoes that can get you to the moon, they'll go on and they'll sit on their floor and be like, I'm transgender. And that's what this,
she
calls it trolling. Which is such a great euphemism for grifting. Trolling and grifting. If you're making money, honey, it's not a troll. It's a goddamn grift.
I will give her the benefit of the doubt. Whereas I think she's just like severely mentally ill,
or and has
been.
I also even think you can be gender nonconforming or trans, and you can present any way you want, and you can have any pronouns you want. So if Trisha Paytas had a big thing where she said that she was a transgender man who uses she/her pronouns and still presents as a femme person, and I don't want to in any way because there are people out there that's their actual experience. Because God forbid me, I'm one of those fucking like the poster boy for like the shitty trans representation, you know, like that fucking got on testosterone pretty immediately and you're nondescript white boy. So I am not coming for anybody's way of living here. But I don't. But did she drop that? Did she go back on that? I don't remember.
Well, the thing is, like, she's just such a troll, and I think that what she does too is she just immediately makes things if she has an idea. I think she was still really learning about non-binary. I don't know if she was really familiar with it. I know she's medicated now, but it's like looking at her, and I think she has been doing the same thing. I think she was dealing with a lot of the same things that like we now see in retrospect Paris Hilton was dealing with and Britney Spears was dealing with, but it was on a smaller level with a smaller audience, and it was just YouTube, and it was a lot more direct and problematic because she didn't have any publicists either. It's just her making these things, getting views, thinking it's okay. And so she's been talking a lot more about it too recently, where she's just like, a lot of really bad things happened to me. I was experiencing trauma constantly. I was dealing with drug addiction. I was dealing with like low self-esteem and also people who are taking advantage of that. And I was just trying to get views and be famous because that was the only thing that was keeping me alive. And like now she's in a healthy relationship with a guy from Israel who she's like she's Israeli now, I guess. Okay. She's not. She's like, I'm Israeli, and it's like, you're not Israeli, Trisha.
Does she mean that she's converting to Judaism, or she's like, no, I'm a citizen of Israel now. I think
she wants to be a citizen very badly.
And so getting back to the Baltimore stuff. So you were doing stuff with the what sort of work were you doing, and like what were the stories that you like, latched onto, and you're like, this is what makes me want to study this? Was there anything in particular you remember, like imprinting on like a duckling?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was mostly just taking that intro to American Studies class, and I think that like the whole class was just like, it was an entire semester of like, what does the American dream mean? Where did it come from? What has it done to us? The whole major ends up being that, but then you get to focus on it different ways. But I think just breaking that down, and I had also like had a teacher my junior year of high school who like was our American history teacher, and he got fired because he was too eccentric. But he had like made us read a history of people, or a history of the United States. I don't know, that Howard Zimmer book, which I can't remember right now. And I was like, nobody has ever told me about any of this stuff. And so and it was like something I'd like latched onto. When I was like a sophomore, we went to Japan. I went to Japan with my school and like went to Hiroshima, and I was like, yeah, this was not the story that was told to me. And so I think just like these little like nuggets of just like realizing how fucked America was, and then being Black, being at this like private all girls school in Pasadena, and being like, yeah, I know the things you're saying to me, but I also know how you're acting to me, and I feel like I'm just constantly being I didn't know at the time, but I was just being gaslit all the time.
Yes.
I was just like,
I can totally see
like,
that, yeah.
yeah. And so I think taking that class and then just being like, oh, somebody is telling me the truth. This is a through line that I have been searching for, and now it's starting to make sense. And I just wanted to like learn really more about like my own history as like a Black person, and how Black people have been like fucked over. What was interesting too was that I was attempting to do a music minor, but because of like mental illness and stuff, I wasn't able to like organize
sidebar, Cameron
enough.
is one of the most beautiful singers I've ever heard in my goddamn
shit.
life. Like, if there had to be there was a very, very high note, you were one of like 2 people probably in the whole building who could hit it. So yeah, so you were doing a music minor. Okay. And
I was attempting to, but mostly what it was is I was like taking a lot of private vocal classical lessons, and then taking some music classes, learning about like jazz history was a class that I took that fulfilled both like this music minor that I never finished, and then also like the history, like America, like my fucking American studies.
early
major,
popular music history, especially for America, is like some of the stuff that I hyper focus on the most. Like what so was it really like getting to learn like those origins and artists that made you start wanting to branch out and become a musician yourself?
I think I just was like, I had always done music, and that was like the thing that I did. I did like theater in high school, and then I really just had always done music since I was like 8 or whatever, maybe even younger. And so I always just was like, that's just something I'm gonna do. I hadn't really like taken vocal lessons by myself that were specifically for classical. The thing that was cool about my school is like they offered a ton of stuff, and there was like so many things, so I could sort of just like pick and choose and experiment and try things out. And so I saw that there were vocal lessons. I saw, because I was taking like a music class, I didn't have to pay for them. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a fucking vocal lesson. Very random who my professor was, ended up being like the best choice for me. And yeah, I just learned more about classical music. And I really thought, I mean, honestly, my plan was to start doing music after I graduated. And whether that was like continuing to take lessons and start doing like more classical stuff, which like would have been a very like strange way to approach it, because a lot of people start much earlier than I did, but also like I've never done anything in the timeline that I was supposed to.
How did you start pinning down more what you are interested in doing? Like, especially when did you start doing comedy specifically? I would love to know the origins of that.
I mean, I sort of tripped into it, which is so fucking funny. I hadn't
see
realized
that. I can
this.
see that happening literally. Like you just like and suddenly you're on a stage and they hand you a microphone and Cameron's just ready to go.
I mean, like pretty much is how like it started. Like I didn't realize this until like a year or 2 ago, but when I was super stressed, I would write comedy sets. I didn't realize I was doing that, and then I looked back and found some of them, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
no, when you're like,
I performed them for anyone.
You don't necessarily
like,
know what a setup or a punch is, but you just knew.
Yeah,
I know to put the funny thing at the end of the sentence. Is that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like a way for me to get like things that were on my brain and things I was stressing out, just like out. And I was like, if it's funny, it'll help me cope with it. Very strange. But I had planned on doing music, and when I first got out of college, I started dating this like piece of shit.
As you do. Yes.
Yeah, and it like took over my life for like a year, so I wasn't really doing anything. Yeah, but then as soon as like that breakup happened, I think literally the next day I was like started playing music with some dude that I had like randomly. This is so funny. It's like I feel like this can only happen in Baltimore. I was at I think in part of like the long breakup that I had with this person, one night I was super drunk at a bar, and one of my favorite bands was playing on one side of the bar, and then in like the other room that was divided by a hallway was like make your own band night or start a band night. They had done like a few times. Who's your favorite
band, unless you don't want to name them now?
Oh no, it's okay. They're like one of my favorite bands in Baltimore. Their name's Big Mouth. It's like just like a punk band.
More like pop punk
3-piece. No, it's just like punk. It was
cool.
like a male drummer, a female bassist, a female guitar player, and then a female vocalist.
Okay, so female dominated, which means I will actually want to listen to it. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, they're really, really, really good. And then I finally just bought like their album because I had listened to their Bandcamp too many times for free, and it's like, you're gonna have to buy this, and it's like, and you're gonna have to buy the vinyl, and I was like, okay, I will, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, well, we'll give them the shout out so other people will go and buy their vinyl.
Yeah, they fucking rule. But yeah, it was like Start a Band Night, which is like an experimental thing they did where they would have like a drum set and like a keyboard and guitars and stuff, and you just go up and just start playing. And I like drunkenly, like randomly started playing with like these two. I didn't play. I just stood up there and started making up words as I was like wasted.
Amazing.
With these two other people, and then ended up meeting up with one of them later, and we were like, let's start. And so like I think it was like the day after a birthday party where I like finally broke up with this guy. And then this other person came over and we wrote like a song, and I was like, this is dope. We had a band for a few months, and then he moved away. And then I was like, well, I want to keep doing creative stuff. So then I did this like play at this theater called Single Carrot Theater that was also a musical. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this. I don't know really what my thing is going to be in Baltimore, but maybe I'll start another band. Maybe I'll do more acting. In the time there, one of the people who was involved in the theater was also involved in like the Baltimore comedy scene, which I had very little experience with.
Yeah, and what's the comedy scene in Baltimore like?
It's strange. When I was there, it was pretty divided. Because then the first show I had was I randomly got because I was like screaming in a bathroom.
As you do. No, I've been there.
Yeah. And then my friend, but this woman Lexi Mountain like came up to me and she was like, "You're very funny. I do this like comedy workshop thing. You should join it." I was drunk and I was like, cool, comedy workshop. We sit around and we talk about comedy or whatever. I'll do that. I don't know. That sounds like fun. I think like 2 weeks later emailed me and she's like, okay, so the show is this day and you have 5 minutes and see you then. And I was like, what? Like, wait, it's a show?
And if you don't know, 5 minutes can feel like nothing, but when you actually start thinking of like, okay, let's fill in these 5 minutes, it can suddenly become the most daunting feeling for a first-time comedian to be like, how do I have thoughts for 5 minutes consecutively?
And like I hadn't done any open mics. I hadn't like really written a real set before. I hadn't really written jokes before. So I was like, okay, so I guess this is just something I'm going to do. And if I don't do well, I don't, and whatever. It was all female, but it was like there were trans women who are also on it.
Okay,
so
it wasn't turkey. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it was like, if there were trans men who wanted to do it, I'm sure it wouldn't have been a problem. I feel like I'd done a show, that same show.
Trans masculine people, we don't know where we're allowed to go, and so we kind of just go, all right, we'll be in my wood shop if that's my thing, or I will be fixing my car, or I'm gonna just not be in the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole point of that one too was just to like let queer people and let females or like literally anybody come and do comedy in a way that wasn't like intense and like shitty and bad.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about Baltimore too, is like it's very, very, very open and very welcoming for the most part. And then people who are shitty get called the fuck out pretty regularly, which is nice.
One of my big gripes with Los Angeles is everybody is so wired to be people pleasing in that way, not in that way of be gracious and be nice and be respectable, but to that point where they sometimes make it a safety hazard, in my opinion, both from the audience standpoint, but then just with the people who are technically your coworkers.
It seems like at any scene that there's going to be gatekeeping, and then there's going to be like protection for individuals who don't need it. And not to say that never happened in Baltimore before, but I just feel like that conversation was happening pretty regularly about like how to combat that. At least trying and attempting to. Where here, I feel like it is now becoming part of the conversation. I think people having the time away are like, well, if I'm going back to comedy, what do I want the scene to look like?
What will I put up with? Yes.
Exactly. And like, what will I also be like, this is not okay, and I don't think anybody wants this. And then everybody's like, yeah, I don't want this either. And another person's like, yeah, this fucking sucks. And so it's been nice to take a break, and everybody's like, okay, so we can have a community and a scene that like works for us and doesn't like harm other people, which it's hard. LA is it's much bigger machine than just like us, but it starts, somewhere.
Do you when you're writing and doing sets, do you tend to be somebody who loves to have that well rehearsed, this is basically me reciting a monologue in that sort of word perfect Beckett way, or do you like to be someone that's like, no, if I have a better idea of something that just happened to me, I'm more willing to maybe bomb if I can't think of a punchline and just get that fucking weird story out? What?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do a little bit of both. I normally just have like jokes, that I what am I not? Normally I have jokes.
Okay,
Like,
all right,
shit,
they bring jokes to the set. Okay, all right.
Sometimes I have a couple of jokes.
Well, I'm gonna steal that.
But I like to keep it really loose. I normally get really stoned before I go up too, just so that way I can just like really go off. So I'll have jokes, but if something comes into the minute or it comes to me in the moment, or if I get really tangenty, I kind of like push to see where that tangent goes. And then my challenge I give to myself is like, how can I get that to the next part of the joke? Or how can I get back to the joke that I started and haven't finished, because now all of a sudden I'm just talking about something else.
To thread that loop from the things that reliably will work with just about any audience, while then also not like being like, oh my God, I can tell that because I think it's the over rehearsing that goes into the uncanny valley almost, where the person that's where you can start to tell like, oh yeah, you definitely watched the O.J. Simpson trial today. That's how fresh this joke is. Tell me more about that. You know who was like a real revelation to me? Because I just saw her fucking destroy, like in that sort of just like, I am like gripping my seat sort of way. Have you seen Megan Keister perform stand up around here?
Yes, she's fucking incredible.
And when she revealed, and I don't know if she talks about this all the time, but she said that she improvises almost all of her sets. I was just
that rules.
I was like, that is the sort of aplomb I wish that I could bring of like, no, really just in a cerebral way, whatever's coming out of my mouth is going to sound as though it took somebody else like months and years of fine tuning. That's what I would love to get to. I don't think I'll ever be a Megan Keister, but God bless, God, she is the fucking funniest person.
That's insane. I didn't know that. Jesus, that's so cool. Yeah, I think like a lot of the people who are like touchstones for me too, spending this time reflecting, are people who feel very loose in the like there is an aspect of what they're doing that is just completely natural in the space that they're in, and playing with the people who are there present in that moment.
Yeah, staying present. Exactly. Yeah,
exactly. And it's just staying present without it necessarily being like, this is my planned part, or like this is going to be this or this. And so I think that was like something I've always strived for. And then it took me a while to realize that's what I was trying to do. I just like to be loose because I'm such a control freak in general, and that's just something I'm trying to work on it always and
Barbara
forever.
Streisand.
Yeah, it's like so intense, and then it's just like when I am controlling over certain things, they turn out really well. Yeah. But then I have enjoyed the process a lot more when I've released the reins a little bit, and I've had more fun.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
But before we wrap it up, I want you to, in your own words, in a more evergreen way, not anything like any particular episode, but give people kind of a general idea of what your show is about. That way, that if they want to go check it out, because I love it. But yeah, describe it in your own words for us.
Well, it's just me and my partner Colin Baker, and we just get high for I think we did a power hour recently too, but yeah, it's just us talking about how we're feeling, and it's a chat show. It's just a chat show between two people who are insane, smoke a lot of weed, and love each other very, very much.
And we do that, and we do mean that in the non-problematic way, because I will also say I'm an insane person. Yeah, we are two people. Cameron and I are two people very Colin open about our mental health issues.
Yeah, Colin and I both have bipolar disorder. I'm realizing I might have ADHD. He does have ADHD. Yeah.
Welcome to the spectrum, honey.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, it's always, another slur unlocked. Wonderful. Sorry.
No, like in Grand Theft Auto 3, like a new part of the map opens up, but it's like psychological terror. Yeah.
That was the Colin original. I did borrow that from Colin. That's something that we have made a joke together. I stole from a white cis straight man, so I feel like it's okay.
Is what we're about.
Reparations.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
And that was my interview with Camirin Farmer. You can find them on Twitter at Camirin Farmer, and that is CAMIRINFARMER. If you enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to do something for a good cause, you can donate to my For Charity Patreon at patreon.com/library hours with Brice. Every dollar we collect is going to the Mutual Aid Solidarity and Snacks. They deliver food and services to the people who live on Skid Row here in Los Angeles. Signing up for our Patreon also unlocks our bonus episodes, another of which is going to be dropping this month. I think I'm going to be making it a history episode, so keep your eyes peeled. And again, that's at patreon.com/library hours with Brice. Either way, I really appreciate you listening, and that's all I got today. Before I go, though, listener, please do me a big favor and take care of yourself. You deserve it. Okay, bye.